Hello one and all! This is my review of Ascendance Bookworm Part 5, Volume 7, and I just genuinely need to ask, what the freak was this volume? Like, seriously, what the freak was this volume? Because we start off with Myne, oh itty little bitty adorable Myne getting ready for a new year at the Royal Academy, and then we quickly pivot to her being kidnapped by a giant golden animatronic rabbit. And then we end with her looking like a full-grown woman, wielding the magic Bible that basically gives her the authority to rule the entire country, leading the strongest army in the world to go invade another duchy and steal its foundation, which would technically make her the Archduke of that duchy, all to save Ferdinand, who is poisoned and dying. What happened? Genuinely, what happened? Was the author writing this and realized partway through, like, oh, I only have 6 volumes left? Alright, let's speedrun this thing, people. We're skipping this year at the Academy. We're making Myne older. We're doing all this, blah, 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 blah. Because that's just how it felt. That genuinely is how it felt reading this. Especially because there was setup for a year at the Academy. You know, they're doing the dedication rituals. There's a new girl from Klassenburg who wants to research with them. They're doing a book exchange with Hannelore. Ortwin teases like, oh, I have some exciting new research for you. There were clearly, plot lines set up, and then they were just completely thrown off the table, all so that Myne could get aged up by a god who mistook her for Ferdinand because Ferdinand accidentally dyed her permanently without realizing it. Insanity. Absolutely freaking insanity. But anyway, though, before Myne was, again, kidnapped by the giant golden animatronic rabbit, I was really enjoying her time at the Academy because it felt like, okay, now that she's going to be a princess, she has some new swagger to her. Beautiful. Like when that god dang Immerdant girl's like, oh, I heard you're being sent to the temple. Myne countered with, if I'm going, you're coming with me. Beautiful. Absolutely perfect. Just a wonderful way of terrifying this girl who 100% deserved it and shutting up everyone else in the room. Amazing. And then we get to Eglantine, who, yeah, I don't think any of us particularly happy with Eglantine right now. But that being said, this volume did explain a lot because, 2 volumes back, it didn't really make a lot of sense. Like, okay, why aren't you just circling the shrines yourself? Why are you involving Myne in this? Well, now we know she physically couldn't circle the shrines because when she tried, the gods themselves told her, hey, girl, you're pregnant. Don't do that. You will kill that child. Which is, certainly a motivation not to circle the shrines. And also motivation to just really get this fixed as quickly as possible because, given Eglantine's background, of course she doesn't want the child growing inside of her to be, brought up in a world in the midst of a civil war. She doesn't want a repeat of the trauma that she's been through. Perfectly understandable. That said, though, I still really enjoyed Myne telling her off here, basically saying, like, okay, you keep saying joint research, but I don't think you know what that word actually means. Joint research at the Academy means research done with the consent of 2 parties, just with the students alone, not with the teachers or faculty involved. And currently, not a single student has been involved in the planning of our joint research. Beautiful. And just ends it with, to be frank, I consider it a tremendous inconvenience that I must waste my days off carrying out a rote dedication ritual instead of dealing with more pressing matters, like the upcoming adoption that she's basically being forced to take part in because of Eglantine. Oh, she was mad, and I just loved her finally having the authority to tell Eglantine off. That was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful. Though, that being said, I do think it's also important to point out that Eglantine kind of forcing Myne to get adopted by the royal family also saved the country because the big bad's evil plan requires the villa that they decided to give to Myne, so they couldn't actually use it because it was in the midst of renovations. Oh God above, that is amazing. Though I can't imagine that Ferdinand is going to be all that happy when he realizes that they tried to stick Myne in the basically forced brothel that he was raised up in. I feel like he may have an issue with that. I feel like he might have a really, really big issue with that. But anyway, though, then we get a potions class where Myne basically announces to everyone that she is not only a harlot, but also that she slept with Hannelore. Amazing. Absolutely freaking amazing. And I think this chapter definitely confirms a long-standing theory I've had that basically Elvira and Florentia both assume the other person gave Myne the talk, because clearly everybody in this room knows what synchronization potions are used for, except for Myne, so she's at the right age, but neither of her mothers actually bothered to give her the talk because they thought the other one was doing it. And I would really like to say, like, okay, now they are aware of the issue, so now they're gonna, fix it. Except the only student from Ehrenfest in the room at the time was, I believe, Wilfried, and I really can't imagine he's gonna include a discussion about his sister's sex life in his daily reports to Sylvester, so yeah, this is gonna keep being an issue. Amazing. Absolutely freaking amazing. Oh, and also, I absolutely loved that the class was very, very interested when they thought that Myne and Hannelore were potentially sleeping together. So apparently there is a market for that in Jürgenschmidt, and somebody should absolutely freaking tell Elvira. But anyway, though, the entire point of this entire class was basically to explain dying, and then to lead us into the fact that Ferdinand accidentally dyed Myne permanently, which genuinely feels like a dirty euphemism. Like, oh girl, I'm gonna dye you so hard that you never turn back. Seriously, that means nothing, and I felt filthy saying it. What the freak is up with the series? But yeah, so because Myne had the mana chunks inside her, and because Ferdinand died her, he died the mana chunks, therefore Myne and Ferdinand are basically the same person. Their mana identity is basically identical. So yeah, I just find it absolutely hilarious that the message that Myne sent to Ferdinand, like, what does it mean to say, I want you to dye me in your colors, is actually something Ferdinand did to her without realizing it. Oh, that is going to be a very, very awkward conversation in the future, and I cannot wait for it. But anyway, though, because Myne is mistaken for Ferdinand, she only gets about 70% of the Magic Bible, which contains all the information of every, I think, like, archnoble, archduke candidate that has ever lived in the entire history of the country. That is insane, like, genuinely insane. I have a lot of questions about that. Like, seriously, if they just, I guess it's an update, so I was gonna say, like, could they kill their enemy and then be like, okay, what's been updated in the book? No, that wouldn't make sense. They would need to kill the enemy and then get the book, and then they would have his information. Then they would have all of his knowledge in it, which feels like an insanely useful and broken ability. But either way, then Myne finds out what Georgine is planning, and it is brilliant. It is absolutely freaking brilliant. Like, seriously, this woman deserves a duchy to run by herself. That's how smart she is. I mean, yes, she's insane and evil, but still, just absolutely brilliant. Because, originally when the Bible was stolen, we're like, okay, so they stole the Bible because they wanted it for some reason. And then we found out, like, oh no, they also poisoned the fake Bible to kill Myne. And then we found out, like, oh no, they were also going to use the actual Bible to try and frame Ferdinand for trying to frame them somehow. But now we find out they actually separated the book and the key and sent the key elsewhere, and the key is now with Georgine, and the key can be used to access Ehrenfest's foundation. That's a lot. That is an insane a lot of just contingencies and backup plans and everything. Oh, also forgot to mention that now Ehrenfest has Arnsbach's key, which Georgine can use to say, like, oh, they stole our key, and use that as justification to invade them. So, yeah. Georgine is absolutely freaking brilliant, and I am seriously impressed. If she was a better person, I'd say Sylvester should just full-on give her the duchy. But anyway, though, now they know what she's planning. They have a big defense meeting to figure out exactly how they're going to counter Georgine. And Myne's big proposal is 3 combat Schumels, which I can't wait. I genuinely can't wait for that. But then Myne gets a deathbed message from Ferdinand basically saying, like, hey, so Letizia accidentally killed me because Detlin tricked her into doing it. And, yeah, just be on the lookout. Georgine's on the way. Peace out. And Myne's response to this is basically, war! As she then calls up the Dinner Duchy and says, oh god, I love her. I love her so much. To put it simply, I wish to invite your entire duchy to play dinner. Would your knights be interested in a true game? God above, seriously. This man she's talking to is one of the most powerful and influential people in the entire world. His duchy is ranked second, and Myne leads him by the nose this entire conversation, just tempting him again and again and again with this promise of playing true dinner. And by the end, he's ecstatic. By the end, he is screaming with delight. He can barely contain himself because this is it. This is going to be the greatest game he has ever seen, and he can't wait for it. God, I love you, Myne. Absolutely freaking love you. But speaking of people I don't love, let's talk about Detland, because this volume, it was weird. It was really, really weird for me. I mean, I don't think any of us would say that Detland is a good person by any stretch of the imagination, but she's always had a sort of limit, you know? When she first found out that she'd be a Zent candidate, she said, "No purges. I will do no purges when I become Zent." And then, you know, when she found out Letizia was supposed to take the role of Archduke from her, she didn't say, "Oh, let's poison Letizia, let's kill Letizia." She just said, "Oh, let's make her life miserable." She's never been one to kill before, and yet this volume, she just full-on went on a murder spree and then told the prince, like, "Oh yeah, you can kill pretty much everyone in my duchy who isn't loyal to me." What the freak? Seriously, Detland went from mean girl to over-the-top cartoon villain in the span of like a volume, and I'm not entirely sure why. Though I do have a theory, because beyond the whole murder spree, Detland was also acting very strange this volume. When Letizia was talking to the prince, she noticed that Detland was saying nothing and just staring at her intently for the entire conversation, which is weird. When in the entire history of this series has Detland managed to keep her mouth shut for more than 5 seconds? Even if the prince said, like, "Hey, Detland, this is my conversation, I'm gonna trick her here, don't say anything," I don't think that would have been enough to actually shut her up. And then later on, you know, after Detland kills everybody in the room, Letizia says, "She looks so nonchalant, like she couldn't see the face stones scattered across the floor." Now, I theorized 1 or 2 volumes ago that I thought the prince was drugging Detland because, you know, when he first got his flirt on with her, she's like, "Oh, what is this lovely sweet smell coming off of him?" Which is the same response that everyone has to being exposed to Trug. Like, "Oh, what is this lovely sweet smell?" So I think that Detland is not as much a murderer as she's being made out to be in this volume. I think the prince are making her act this way. Now, not to the degree where it's like, oh, she's going to have a whole redemption arc down the road, but just to the degree where, you know, they're making her into more of a monster than she would normally be. And I feel like that's an important point to get across. But anyway, though, speaking of terrible people, let's talk about Prince Siggy, because he was surprisingly not awful this volume. He supported Myne's decision to refill the library's magic tools, escorted her to the library, was genuinely impressed by the amount of mana she regularly gave, could actually read the situation well enough to realize that, yeah, even someone as insane as Myne wouldn't leave me waiting just so she could do some reading, actually felt bad that she would miss her chance to come first in class again, because you remember that proud smile she had when she won last year, understood her well enough to realize that her culture was genuinely not of this world, checks on the library's magic tools in her absence, and has no complaints when he gets called out in the middle of the night to open the door for her. I mean, I'd say the worst thing about him this volume was him pressuring Eglantine to circle the shrines after she'd recently given birth, but that was a, you know, pretty logical choice to make. It absolutely needed to get done, and she was pretty much the only person who could actually do it. Oh, we also get to see Charlotte's reaction to Myne's disappearance, and I love that the biggest concern for the dorm wasn't Myne's safety, but rather the possibility that if they told the truth, they would get lumped in with Hartmut, who became extra crazy because Myne was, you know, literally communing with a freaking god, to the point where he basically tortured anyone who even somewhat badmouthed her. Love it. Absolutely love it. Meanwhile, Myne's retainers just kept getting more and more ticked at Wilfried's utter lack of concern following her disappearance, with him even saying, like, "Wow, it's so nice and peaceful this semester." Dude, your sister and ex-fiance were just kidnapped by a giant golden animatronic rabbit. Have some, concern. Somehow, say something better than that. Good Lord above. Oh, Myne finally got back. Oh God, I love this line. I was struck with the urge to admire her refined, almost sculpture-esque beauty from every angle, from now until the end of time. You go, girl. Seriously, the gods did a very good job of making Myne as beautiful as possible. Anyway, there are a few things I want to mention. First off, the Klassenberg girl, can't remember her name, won't bother looking it up. She brought ancient texts, old rituals she wanted to revive, that Myne said were similar to the, spells to summon forth spring. And I can't help but wondering, wouldn't that be useful? Wouldn't that be absolutely insanely useful for Klassenberg to have? I mean, they are way, way up north, so I feel like it must be just snowing there all the freaking time. If they could actually, discover or rediscover ritual to summon forth spring to make it, warmer early, that would fully change their entire economy. Meanwhile, Ferdinand, God, I love Ferdinand so much here. Arnsbach is to blame for her becoming an ill-behaving harlot. I do not even wish to look at that immoral adulteress. I wish he said that. I genuinely wish he'd said that out loud instead of just thinking it, because I don't think anybody would actually disagree with her. Seriously, the entire duchy basically turned on her because of her awful behavior, and I love it. Also, Ferdinand is very much up to something, saying, first off, he knows that Myne is hiding something from him, but also he is hiding something from her, because he says, I should be able to help once I am finished with what I am making. And later on, after Myne disappears, he says Myne has ruined his plans once again. Though also, Ferdinand is hiding a lot from everybody, because if he showed up before the tree god dude, then he got the magic Bible, meaning that from the very beginning of this series, Ferdinand had the authority to become the next king. At any point, literally any point, he could have just walked into the royal palace and said, hey, I got the magic Bible, get off the throne, I'm sitting on it now. Amazing. Absolutely freaking amazing. Oh, and we also got Dirk and Bertram's baptism. Oh my god, I love that so much. Seriously, Dirk, we met him as a baby, a freaking newborn infant, and now he's being baptized as a noble. That is insane. That is genuinely insane. Also found it very interesting that, they basically decided not to tell anyone, oh no, he's a commoner, rather they just let everyone think that he was a member of his parents were a member of the Veronica faction. I guess that's better than him being a commoner, though I'm curious what kind of story he's going to tell moving forward, if anybody asks who his parents were. Very curious. Also love Greta, who is she goes hard on Bertram, telling him that he might be executed if he keeps complaining. And it works because, when it comes time for Bertram's baptism, he gives, Sylvester the greatest display of gratitude a noble could make. And that pretty much shuts up the crowd. They're like, oh, wow, this dude is serious right here. Good for you, Greta. Seriously, you are somehow one of my favorite retainers, even though you have had such a little role in this series. I love you so much. Oh, and finally, I absolutely love that Myne got to show off her new grown-up body to her family. Seriously, Thule, I want a chapter from Thule's point of view where she goes to the fitting and she's like, okay, I haven't seen my sister in 6 months, and she grew 1.5 feet taller. What the freak? Genuinely, what the freak just happened here? Oh, God, and Myne's lying while she's being measured. Thule, no matter what happens, I will protect you. Love it. Absolutely love it. And then we get to the baptism, Camille's baptism, where she gets to see her little brother for the first time, and her mother even dyed his clothes so that he'd be easier to find. Oh, thank you so much, Effa. That was such a sweet decision for you to make. That was amazing. And then as the doors open, her family sees her all grown up. And while people have had a lot of very mixed reactions to her being aged up, they are just so overjoyed. They are so happy that she's big and strong and healthy and beautiful, and they love her so much, and she is so upset that she will probably never see them again once she moves to sovereignty. Seriously, Ferdinand, you gotta do something here. You gotta depose the king, become king, make Myne your queen. Do something to make sure that Myne can spend time with her family for the love of all that is good and holy in this world. Oh, also, probably forgot to mention this, but the commander of the Knights, of the Sovereignty Knights, one of the most important, influential people in the entire world, is actually a spy who's loyal to the foreign king instead of the king sitting on the throne of this country. So that might be, a bit of an issue. Who can say? But please, let me know the comments down below. What do you think is insane progress from the start of this volume to the end of this volume? How exactly is the war with Arnsbeck going to go, from Myne's perspective as she attacks them, and from, I guess, Sylvester's perspective as he gets attacked by them? How's Ferdinand doing in, the mana replenishment hall, slowly getting drained? What's happened with all that? Please let me know what you think about all that down below. And until next time, peace!